Hello and welcome to Council Catch-Up here on WSTO TV, TDS Channel 12 in HD, Spectrum Channel 981, as well as our WSTO TV, Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV apps, Android and iOS apps, our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We're here to talk about the February 28th, 2023 Council meeting, and I'm here with Mayor Tim Swadley. We had the normal roll call and all of that kind of stuff. It looked like the first thing we had that had anything of note would be the public comment period.
So we had a number of people signed up to speak at the public comment period. Most of them, or all of them, were signed up to speak regarding the proposed quick trip on the east side of Stoughton. And the first thing I did is kind of explain the rules of our public comment period. Basically, each person has 3 minutes to speak, and we allow for a maximum of 30 minutes total, which could be adjusted based on council approval to extend the time. The public comment is different from a public hearing, and a public hearing is a hearing that is noticed for a meeting. And in this particular case, as the city attorney explained later, it's really important to identify the differences, because on the quick trip item, that's going to be considered under conditional use permit, which falls under State Statute Act 67. And really what happens during that is the testimony from a public hearing, which occurred at the Plan Commission, is what will be used by the City Council as they act as a quasi-judicial role on the decision-making on this quick trip proposal. So any of the comments that were made at public comment last night were certainly heard, but they are not considered part of the testimony as it relates to the Act 67 law, which will be considered when the quick trip is ultimately voted on.
Okay. And then we had communications and presentations. Did anything happen during that?
There was a few communications. I was approached a couple weeks ago by a group that wants to start up what they're calling a Spread Goodness Day, which I did a proclamation that will be on March 10th. And you'll probably see some people out in the community doing some fun things to just really, spread goodness in the community and focus on some of the positive things that are going on here in Stoughton. So this would be the first year of that. I also gave a communication. There's going to be a public information meeting on March 6th regarding the Virgin Lake Trail project. And then also President Hirsch reminded the city council members that we do have a committee of the whole meeting on Thursday night. And that is in regard to two issues. One would be a proposed alcohol operator license change in procedure, as well as the use of the ARPA funds.
Okay. And then we had the consent agenda, which is all kinds of normal stuff. The first item we had was old business, item number 7, Ordinance 3, to amend section 66-904 sub 8 of the Municipal Code for Stormwater Basin Aesthetics.
And this one we've talked about in the past. What we're trying to do is make the ponds in the residential developments look more natural. And we're still going to do some additional wordsmithing on this one. So this one was sent back to the committee. So this will appear at a future council meeting.
Okay. And then we had a new business, item number 8, Resolution 24 of 2023, certified survey map for lot line adjustments on Markins Gate Road.
Yeah, so Markins Gate Road is over on the west side of town, and they're basically just really adjusting the size of the lots.
Okay. And then we had an extraterritorial land division on Star School Road. First of all, what is extraterritorial land division?
The city of Stoughton, we're a fourth-class city, so that means that if somebody out on the fringes of the city within a 1.5-mile radius wants to do a project, they have to come to the city and the county and then their local jurisdiction, which is usually a township, to get approval when they're doing like a certified survey map to change a lot. And oftentimes on the edges, it's in a rural area, or maybe it's on a farm and they want to build a home for, mom and dad, or they want to do something with the lot line so they can build a shed or something like that.
Okay, so this was just kind of one of those. And then item number 10, Resolution 26, 2023, was the conditional use permit for Quick Trip.
Yeah, so if you want to hear a lot of lawyer talk, this would be an opportunity to watch the full meeting. And the city attorney kind of went through the whole history of the Act 67 law that I referred to earlier and how it would apply to the proposed Quick Trip proposal. And it was really an opportunity for the city council members and the people that were there that are concerned about this project to really understand how this process will play out. And really, to make a long story short, whenever a project like this is considered under a conditional use permit, it really needs to be a data-driven decision-making. We can't just deny something because we may not want it. We have to have good reason. So, for example, we can't deny it because somebody believes that it's going to create more noise in the neighborhood. They have to be able to demonstrate, what that would be. Now, if it was like a factory and it was, making noises that could be measured, I think that might be something that you could consider. Or if they say, well, we're concerned about the traffic, then, the developer would have to provide a traffic study that would show that it's within the limits that the DOT might accept. So it really can't just be, well, I don't want it in my neighborhood. It has to be, I don't want it, and here's why it's a bad thing, and I can prove it.
Okay. And then item number 11 was Resolution 27 of 2023, a certified survey map to combine the parcels to allow the Quick Trip.
Yeah, so the city council on this one, both these items, decided not to take any action. One thing that occurred is we have a policy that says whenever we have a public hearing, which we do on a conditional use permit, and whenever we have a zoning change, we are required to notify neighbors within a 300-foot radius. And we pull that information off of Access Dane. And what happened is when we pulled the information, there's 2 condos that were within this 300-foot radius. And when we pulled the data off of Access Dane, they did not have the individual condo owners listed. So when some of the neighbors were out talking to each other, they brought it to our attention that not everybody was notified. So what the city council has decided to do is to have a joint meeting with the Plan Commission on April 11th and have an additional public hearing. So those neighbors that weren't able to speak at the February Plan Commission meeting will have an opportunity to share their concerns. Quick Trip can do another presentation, and that's really the evidence that the city council will take into consideration when they ultimately make a decision on this project.
All right. Then we had item 12, Resolution 28, 2023, preliminary resolution declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers for 2023 street and sidewalk project.
So every year we do street work, and oftentimes it involves curbs, gutters, and sidewalks. And we have a city policy that basically says that on the sidewalks, the homeowners pay for half of the cost of that. And what we do is we take it through our Public Works Committee, and we identify the road projects we want to do. We go through our policies, do the engineering, and then ultimately we'll tally up the cost for the city and for the homeowner, and we'll bid out the projects. The special assessment is put into place to recover the half of the cost, as I had mentioned. And this is just kind of a formality where we have to notify the public that there may be some costs on their property. The specific amounts have not been determined yet, as the work has not been completely bid out.
Okay. And that's mainly because when they get a new sidewalk or a driveway apron, it benefits their property. Right.
It benefits their property, and really it's a citywide thing. So sooner or later, most homes are going to have to, at some point add or replace sidewalks. And when the road is done, and so it kind of is what goes around comes around. I know I've had mine special assessed in the past as well. So it's usually not the most popular thing, but we really have a focus to have walkable, bikeable areas here in Stoughton, and it is beneficial for the homeowners and the community at large.
Okay. And then it looks like the next three items are all related, Resolution 29, 30, and 31, related to a restructure in the police department.
Yeah, so what we're looking at doing is currently we have our chief of police, and then we have one lieutenant, and then three sergeants, or four sergeants. And in the past, we had two lieutenants. And what we're trying to do is kind of come up with a hybrid version of that. So we'd have the police chief, we'd have two lieutenants, and then we'd have three sergeants for the patrol officers, and then an additional sergeant that would not only help the patrol officers, but would also work with some of the other positions with the detectives. So it would be a detective sergeant. And we want to restructure it this way because what we're finding is that there's in the organizational structure, we're able to handle the workload that we have, but we think that we can create some efficiencies by having some clear understanding of whose responsibilities are as they relate to supervision of staff, paperwork, taking care of open records requests, investigations, and having people in positions where they actually have the authority to make the decision on the spot instead of having to call in to a supervisor and make that decision. And we also believe it's going to do two really important things. We have a very young staff overall in our police department, and we want to get the sergeants out in the field and do some field training. So it'll allow them to focus on the field training and less on paperwork. And then also it'll allow the office manager to work on the open records requests, which involve a lot of video footage from the body cams. They have to do some redacting and take information out to protect minors usually when there's incidents. And then really just focus on the detectives and their work. They want to be able to do follow-up visits and make sure that the victims, if they have any additional needs, they can reach out to them and do those follow-up visits. So we think overall it's a really positive thing for the department and for the community as a whole. And we, in order to implement this, we needed to vote on the structural change. There's a little bit of additional financing that will occur that for this year's budget, we've had enough gaps in employment that we can pay for the additional cost. And understanding next year there'll be a pretty minimal bump in the budget for that department in order to accommodate this. And then as well as making sure that the job descriptions are consistent with the new alignments. And then what we also feel is this will really position the department not only for now, but as the community and the department grows.
All right. And then item 16, resolution 32, authorizing directing proper city officials to approve the write-off of Stoughton Utilities delinquent accounts, balances, and invoices deemed uncollectible. And
this is something that we do on an annual basis where typically it's, a business that went out of business or a homeowner where maybe they passed away or, something that was unforeseen where the money is just uncollectible. And they do have a collection agency and do some internal collecting themselves to try to minimize that cost. But at some point, as time goes on, it's really just not even cost effective to continue to chase the dollars.
All right. And then resolution 33 was approving a waiver of the requirements to issue a notice of intent to dispose and the solicitation of sealed bids for a used Virginia substation transformer.
So this is kind of a long story, but basically we had a transformer that failed. We sent it into the company to basically take it apart and try to figure out why it failed and to make sure that it wasn't something in our system that caused it to fail. It was out of warranty. We were going to have to purchase a new one or rebuild it. We found out that we could buy a used one and get it immediately versus buying a new one. So we were able to pursue that. Director Weiss came up with an idea to do that, contacted the neighboring community that had one. So the old one, once I call it an autopsy is done on it to figure out what happened, we're going to turn around and sell that to another municipality because they have a need. And the lead time on these transformers are well over a year now, and the cost is skyrocketed. And really, this is kind of a win all around because we can all get our transformer replaced at a more cost-effective level, and while we can get it right away, and then hoping that long-term that the prices will come down when the supply chains get caught up again. And really, the policy is, we're basically disposing it. We have a policy that says that we can't just sell it if it's over a certain amount. So we needed approval in order to do this.
All right. Item 18 and 19, Resolution 34 and 35 are both relating to the Chamber of Commerce and their temporary retailer's license and special event licenses.
Yeah, so it's the time of the year again where Callie from the Chamber and Visitor Services comes to the council. And Stoughton and I, will be around the corner here in May. So the good news is spring is almost here. And Callie kind of did an overview of some of the changes that were made. You might recall last year there was a decision made not to have the Saturday parade. There will not be a Saturday parade again this year. We just didn't have the type of participation that really took to keep it going. The other thing that changed is we were notified in November that our race day partners had been doing it for the last 4 years for the Centennial Run, that they were not in a position to organize the race for us. So what we're going to do, instead of starting from the Capitol and having to run all the way down to Stoughton, we've come up with some different routes that start at Mant Park and end at Mant Park. So you can still do the run. And what we're going to do is we're going to feature the run in our neighborhoods, utilizing our sidewalks and trails, and try to minimize crossing highways and county roads as part of the run. So it was a long-standing tradition, I believe 40 years, to start from the Capitol. But, it's getting more and more difficult to find partners to sponsor the races and to find volunteers to run it. And we are already getting quite a bit of support from local neighborhoods that want to participate and encouraging the runners and handing out water and those sort of things. So the run will look different this year, but it's still going to occur as well as the walk. So we're excited about that. So basically, Callie went through and gave us an overview on how Centennial is going to go. And then also the next item, she talked about coffee break. And she just comes and gets them both approved at the same time, which is just more efficient for her to do that. We don't expect any major changes with coffee break this year. Last year, they did work in collaboration with Relay for Life, which is the same night at Mant Park. So they shared a tent, for example, which was awesome. So we're looking forward to both the events this year.
All right. And then the last item on the agenda was Resolution 36 of 2023 to review and approve a contract for tree removal service to the lowest responsible bidder, which was Jim's Tree Service. Is that any different than the past couple of years? Yeah,
it's a different vendor that had the low bid this year. I think Jim's is pretty local. The last vendor did a great job for us. I know Director Hebert included a few more things into the bid this year to give us more flexibility. For example, have more resources available if we have a bad storm like we did last year. And Jim's was able to provide that at a really good rate in the bid. So we're really pleased to have them on board to do the tree trimming this year.
All right. That's all we had for the meeting on February 28th. And we'll see you all after the, I believe it's March 14th council meeting.